There are 1,000 initiatives that can be taken to convert our species from one of pride and warmongering to one of peace, justice, love, and compassion. These can and should begin at once, so they can proceed simultaneously with a completely different list of urgent and essential actions to prevent the cabal from establishing a fascist dictatorship under the guise of a new world order. The situation in the world in 2018 is similar to the one that existed in 1939, with one critical exception. At that time, Hitler's military juggernaut was in full sight for everyone to see and to fear the ominous consequences. Today, the situation is even more frightening. The near-invincible military might of the Nazis does not consist of stormtroopers and tanks, fighter aircraft and missiles. The primary source of military power consists of an armada of spaceships equipped with weapons that make the ones used in World War II, prior to August 6, 1945, when the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, look like toys. President Eisenhower sounded the alarm in his final address to the nation when he warned Americans to beware of the military-industrial complex. It would have been helpful if his language had been more specific, because he already knew that the UFO ET file had fallen into the wrong hands. The extent to which this is true can be gauged by the fact that even though, as Dr. Michael Wolff explained, the underground base at Area 51 is a sprawling city the size of Rhode Island, and it continues to grow, with a sister base called S4, some 12 miles away, and another named Indian Springs. No American president has ever been allowed to visit or inspect it. The incredible fact that the President of the United States, who is legally the Commander-in-Chief of all its armed forces, has not been fully privy to the plans and projects of those forces is 100% proof that something smells in the heart of the Republic, and a faint whiff of that odor has just begun to be detected. I mentioned earlier that the power of the enemy within is almost invincible. The only hope lies in the word almost, quote unquote. Unlike the situation in the 1939, the idea of an extended mobilization would be ridiculous in the extreme. There are, however, steps that can be taken before the U.S. election, hopefully in November of 2018, that would prevent the Nazis from ever effecting their coup. And this is the final call to action stations. In my book, I give reasons for each of the proposed actions. Regretfully, there is insufficient time for that here. 1, an action plan for Americans to take back control of America. At the top of the list is the Central Intelligence Agency. It should be shut down immediately and totally. It has been the headquarters for the evil empire, at least at the covert level. It introduced torture, which is a tool of the one we call Satan. The CIA has engineered the policy of continual war. It has also, according to various accounts, been one of the biggest, if not the biggest, drug dealer in the United States of America. The CIA should be locked and shuttered before any documents can be removed or shredded. Employees should be given 3 months separation pay, and the organization and the inestimable damage it has done pass into history. Second, National Security Agency should be shut down at once, but only on an interim basis until the war is over. Putting the massive spy agency in mothballs will level the playing field and make it impossible for the Nazis to know who among their own ranks has opted to tell the truth and who has not. The massive spying organization will become inert until the situation has become sufficiently stabilized. That is, so that the Congress can decide how much universal spying should end and how many selective targets, if any, remain. Number 3, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, should be completely shut down until the Congress can examine and review all of its advanced projects from a moral and ethical point of view. Is DARPA involved in experiments to develop beings that are half human and half machine? Question mark. If so, what is the purpose of its experiments? And is it one that our Creator God would approve? The same question can be asked of artificial intelligence. Building robots to do the dirty work, like mining, for example, is perfectly rational. But why develop machines to do our creative thinking for us when we don't use the common sense that is part of our inheritance? Some of the projects that DARPA is alleged to be working on appear to be quite grotesque and totally out of sync with a world of peace, justice, and beauty. And that should be the standard by which the Congress should determine its suitability for public funding. Next, number 4, the Federal Reserve should, of all of the targets mentioned here, be on a par with the CIA. It must be nationalized at once before the congressmen and congresswomen start thinking about campaign funds for the 2020 election. In my book, I refer to the Fed as, quote, the biggest heist in history, end of quote. That is exactly what it is. The power to create money is the most valuable financial asset that any country possesses. Yet it was given away, yes, given away, to a handful of the richest bankers in the world. The legislation to establish the Fed was introduced just before Christmas, and the Congress may have had other things on its mind. But allowing this legislation to be passed and implemented was one of the most irresponsible actions imaginable. Congress must act immediately to right a 105-year-old injustice and dissolve the system that has given the cabal its nearly absolute power. Anyone who has read Lucifer's Banker by Bradley C. Birkenfeld will conclude that the present banking system is rotten to the core and should be redesigned from the ground up, preferably along the lines I have outlined in Chapter 21. It should also be recognized that international trade, despite its many benefits in providing a wide range of products to pander to many different tastes, is not an economic panacea. It might increase the GDP infinitesimally if it results in increasing the velocity of turnover of the existing money supply. But generations of depressions, recessions, and austerity budgets are all due to inadequate domestic demand. And the only way of filling that perennial void is government-created money. Number 5, the chemtrail ionized sky duel. The U.S. President should order the armed forces to cease and desist immediately from using chemtrails, this most evil of all projects. In one fell swoop, he would eliminate their ability to use weather as a weapon, Global warming is creating more than enough extreme variations in weather patterns without adding to it artificially. The devastating medical and health problems related to our daily dose of nanoparticles of aluminum, barium, strontium, and other unknown elements has already been noted in my book. It is about survival and the balance of power between nations and between the military and innocent civilians. The chemtrail HARP fence has been designed to encourage psychotic generals into believing that the US could wage a nuclear war with Russia and suffer only acceptable casualties. This is sheer madness, of course, but when generals are subject to mind control, they cease to be rational. This same fence is designed to discourage any good ETs who might consider coming to our rescue from doing so. To the many countries, including Canada, who have been duped into believing that the chemtrails are related to climate control, I say, tear up your agreement with the US and act immediately. No need for studies or commissions or inquiries. The health and possibly the lives of your citizens are in danger until you end this horrific system. And number 6, ground the Space Command. The US President should issue an order grounding all space vehicles of every kind until the question of who will represent Earth in space has been agreed by all the major powers, including Russia and China. In particular, another arms race is inevitable in the absence of a diplomatic solution. Diplomatic solutions must become the norm. Certainly, the Nazi-controlled US fleet should sit on the ground until all crews have been screened for allegiance to the US Constitution and the people of the United States. Space travel offers an exciting new frontier, but we are not welcome in deep space until we abandon our frontier mentality of shoot first and ask questions after, which has been our modus vivendi until now. Number 7, ban automatic rifles, except for the military. I have added this one in honor of those wonderful young people who I admire so very much. They are concerned about their lives and safety, and so should we all be. It would be wonderful to outlaw the automatics, compensate the owners, and convert the metal into hand tools for the poor people of the world who need them most. The potential miracle can only happen from the bottom up. There is no way that America can be saved for Americans if you expect the miracle to begin at the top. It will only happen if many, many millions of ordinary Americans are sufficiently motivated to save their country from the Nazis that they contact the president, their congressman or congresswoman, and their senator, if he or she is one of the 35 up for re-election, and say to each one of them, "We will vote against you, regardless of party, if you don't initiate and enact the agenda set out above before the election. Promises of action after the election won't do. Only action now will earn you my vote, because it is the survival of my country as an independent entity that is at stake." Finally, a joint congressional committee would be good. To set one up, establish it immediately to seek the truth in these matters. But first, it would be necessary to enact a general amnesty under the National Security Act. There are many patriots that would love to tell the truth, but the cost is too high without an amnesty. The revelations would only start when the new Congress has been sworn in. But what they learn and what they do with what they learn will determine the fate of America and, perhaps, the human species, or most of it.